U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urges all parties to collaborate with the UN envoy and indulge in peace without preconditions. UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Coordinator Martin Griffiths says Yemen needs more humanitarian aid. Because of Houthi escalation in Shabwa, a new wave of displacement to Ma'rib has started. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called on all parties to work with the UN envoy and engage in peace talks without preconditions, stressing that there is a chance to achieve peace in Yemen and all must seize it. Blinken's statement came during donors' meeting where he pointed out that humanitarian aid cannot solve the crisis. Washington is committed to support Yemenis to reach peace, Blinken added. Donors pledged an additional $600 million in aid to tackle the humanitarian crisis in Yemen, while the United Nations and other aid agencies warned that vital aid programs will be scaled back this year if more funding is not available. Only half of this year's $3.85 billion plan was funded to respond to what the United Nations calls the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Significant additional pledges were made, including $291 million from the United States, €119 million from the European Union, $100 million from Qatar, and $90 million from Saudi Arabia. In addition, the United Nations Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, called on the international community to continue providing aid to Yemenis. The former envoy indicated that the most vulnerable people are the ones who bear the cost of the Yemeni crisis, including children. Earlier, David Beasley, Executive Director of the World Food Programme of the United Nations, said that the program is running out of money again. And without providing new funding, 16 million people in Yemen are walking toward famine, noting that food rations for millions in the war-torn country will be reduced in October unless new funding arrives. In an attempt to create a new fuel crisis in the country, Houthi militia has prevented fuel tankers from entering their controlled areas and requested extra taxes and permits. This report has more on that story.
Houthi militia prevented the entry of fuel tankers coming from the areas under the control of the Yemeni government and burned about 20 tankers at the custom port they had established in Al-Bayda in an attempt to create a new fuel crisis and encourage the black market. This move by the militia comes after failed plans to persuade importers to transfer their goods through the port of Hodeidah as they closed the main roads that link Aden and Mukalla ports with their areas under their control. According to importers, the Houthi militia-run oil company informed them that it would confiscate any fuel shipments coming from government-controlled areas and obliged them to obtain prior transport license. This allows the imposing of additional taxes and custom fees after failing to compel importers and shipping companies to divert goods to Hodeidah port under their control. Houthi militia burned more than 20 tankers loaded with fuel at one of their security checkpoints in the Na'am district after a dispute with the owners. They were held for several days for reasons that the shipment did not obtain prior permits. The importers confirmed that the militia supervisors wanted to confiscate the quantity and then sell it on the black market. Further, the dispute escalated between Houthis and owners before the militia members launched fire on fuel tankers to expel the protesters as they claim, according to a report by the Famine Early Warning Systems Network. Despite the availability of fuel at private stations, it is sold at unofficial prices as prices remained much higher during last August with an increase of 29% and 21% respectively. The ongoing fuel crisis has also contributed to an increase in cooking gas prices this year due to the use of cooking gas as an alternative fuel for minibuses. According to the data of the Food and Agriculture Organization, the unofficial prices of cooking gas in areas under the control of the Houthi militia reached their highest levels at more than $18 per 20 liters in late August, an increase of 60% compared to prices in July 2020. Officials in militia-controlled areas continue to provide some families with monthly allowances of gas cylinders at official prices. Not all registered families receive them in a timely manner, and the allowances are not sufficient to meet the needs of large families. Therefore, reliance on firewood as an alternative source of fuel has increased for many poor and middle-income families. In the areas controlled by the government, the data of the Food Organization showed good provision of the fuel at the official stations after the arrival of new batches of the Saudi fuel grant. However, the official prices of diesel and gasoline remained high and increased further in August, reaching 578 and 566 riyals per liter respectively. These prices, according to the same data, are more than the prices they were at the same time last year. Cooking gas is also available in government-controlled areas, although prices are nearly double what they were at the same time last year. Meanwhile, the total imported food through all major sea and land ports in Yemen during the first 6 months of this year increased by 31% compared to the same period last year. These reports confirm that the violent conflict, now in its 7th year, has paralyzed the Yemeni economy and remains the main driver of food insecurity. In the end, fighting, political instability, severe shortages of foreign exchange and further depreciation of the local currency have led to higher food prices, and a significant drop in income increases the economic pressure on families. When would Yemenis be able to get over all of this? Only days can tell.
The Secretary General of the Arab League, Ahmed Abul Gheit, said that Houthis insist on continuing the fight despite total deterioration of the humanitarian and health conditions in Yemen. In his speech before the informal interactive dialogue session between the Arab League and members of the Security Council, Abul Gheit added that the Houthis did not respond to different peace initiatives. In Ma'rib, Ubaida tribe announced that they would support government forces against the Houthi militia. According to sources, the tribes, in a meeting held in the presence of the governor of Ma'rib, Sultan El-Arata, stressed the importance of social solidarity in the battle against the Houthis. The tribes also decided to form other reserve battalions to defend the province from the Houthis. Despite their recent escalations on a number of fronts, Houthi militia has received strong blows and considerable losses in personnel and equipment. The following report tracks the rebels' losses throughout different battlefields.
Houthi militias continue to receive strikes on various fighting fronts. As for Hudaydah front, military sources said that the units stationed to the west of the city of Hais engaged in clashes with the militias affiliated with Iran. After careful monitoring of intense movements and receiving reinforcements to proximity of the contact lines from the direction of Al-Jarrahi Directory. It also confirmed the killing and wounding of a number of militia members, forcing the rest to flee, and the destruction of an artillery position and a moving vehicle carrying a B-10 launcher. 6 Houthis were killed. In the same context, the Houthi militia tried to attack the military sites that closed the militia's main snuggling line south of Tuhaita, and soon it was broken before the joint forces, according to the same sources. Also, 6 Houthi fighters were killed and others wounded after the joint forces thwarted an infiltration attempt by the Houthi militia in Al-Fazza, south of Hudaydah. A military source said that the joint forces engaged in violent clashes with armed groups affiliated with the Houthi militias who tried to infiltrate the front lines of the fighting fronts. The sources confirmed that the confrontations resulted in the death of 6 Houthis and the wounding of others, while the rest of the elements fled. Turning to Shabwa, a military source confirmed the arrival of a large military reinforcements in support of the government forces in the confrontation lines with the Houthi militia in Bayhan district. The same source added that the government's tribes announced a general mobilization to support the army and the resistance, which is currently launching counterattacks against Houthi forces in various locations. The government forces have recaptured 4 sites in the western Shabwa governorate that the Houthi militia had taken over. in the Asailan district. A military source stated that the army forces recaptured the Safra, al-Suwaida, al-Salim, and al-Alam areas in light of the continuous advance of the army and the mass escape of militia members that infiltrated the districts of Bayhan in conjunction with the arrival of huge military. In conclusion, Houthi rebels continue to receive considerable losses in personnel and equipment despite their recent escalation. This militia seems to understand no language but that of force.
Ma'rib is witnessing a new wave of displacement due to Houthi escalation, according to the Executive Unit for the Management of IDPs camps in Yemen. The unit announced that a new wave of displacement to Ma'rib has started due to Houthi attack on Huraib, Ain, Bayhan, and Usaylan. In Shabwa, the statement pointed out that the Houthi militia had bombed citizens' homes in Rahaba area early this month, causing more than 7,200 to leave their homes, most of whom are women and children. The Yemeni Network for Rights and Freedom has documented 6,476 violations committed by Houthi militia against women in 19 governorates. The network indicated that Houthi violations against women during January 2015 to June 2021 varied between killing and wounding, explosion of mines and explosive devices, sniping and random firing of live bullets, plus arrests, kidnappings, enforced disappearances, and torture. Coming next. Houthis continue their campaign to crack down singers and musicians.
أقول لك راحت بالغداء لأهلها شلت الغداء وراحت بالأهلها في المزرعة، والمزرعة ركبت على حمار ما حتى نص المزرعة وانفجر فيها اللوم، دعست على اللوم وانفجر فيهم. الحمار انتهى ما أدرهم وتبقعت رجليها كامل. نغير منها نغير الشبعة اللي هي البنت سابحة من دور رجليها اللي صافناها طبية أقرب طبية وصافناها هي بطلت رجليها كامل.
قلت أزود هلي وقابل لي لعام وطبعته تحت الزواية.
Welcome back. The mad campaign of Houthis against culture, music, and singers is in mounting escalation. Different singers have been arrested in Sana'a and other cities. More on this story is within this report.
The Houthi coup militia continues to suppress Yemeni art and artists and impose its extremist ideas. The latest crimes of the terrorist Houthi militia after it arrested the Yemeni singer Yusuf al-Badji in front of his house in Sana'a because of his appearance on the Guests of Art program on one of the TV channels. The kidnapping of al-Badji is not the first. Houthi militia also kidnapped a well-known Yemeni singer from a wedding hall in Sana'a when he was performing at a wedding concert. According to local residents, the Houthi militia, which has an extremist approach to singing, learned about the revival of the singer Asil Abu Bakr, a vigil, and made a call with the owner of the wedding hall at midnight and informed him of the need to stop singing. But the audience refused that, and they ordered the singer to continue singing. They added that a Houthi military vehicle carrying a number of gunmen arrived at the scene and stormed the capital's hall and attacked the audience, while they took the artist Asil Abu Bakr to an unknown destination. And in the past weeks, the Houthi militia issued a warning to the artist Fouad al-Kibsi to stop singing permanently after he revived a wedding ceremony and confiscated his musical instruments. The militias asked the singer Al-Kipsi to switch to singing the anthems of the terrorist militia, which glorifies the militia leaders and urges civilians to fight within its ranks. The Houthi militia had issued instructions banning artists from singing and attending events and weddings within the context of its procedures and practices in its areas of control. This included the detention and arrest of activists and artists on moral charges and restrictions on artistic activities in a behavior similar to the behavior of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. The Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, El Ariani, commented on the scene of the brutal attack by the Iranian-backed Houthi militia on an artist and guests in a wedding hall in Sana'a, and considered it as part of the militia's efforts to impose its ISIS rituals. The Yemeni minister wrote, commenting on a video showing the stampede of people in a wedding hall and the artist's attempt to escape, that is not the first and will not be the last in light of its continued control and efforts to impose its ISIS rituals and martial provisions on Yemenis through terrorism and force of arms. The Yemeni official considered the Houthi militia's continued attacks on art and artists and attempts to impose its extremist ideas as an attempt to subjugate society by force, stressing that it's no different from Al-Qaeda and ISIS. A dark future and fate awaits Yemenis unless the state is restored and the coup is overthrown. The United Nations and human rights organizations should leave the box of silence and raise their voice by condemning the repression and abuse practiced by the Houthi militia against artists and culture.
In Aden, Ministry of Health announced the arrival of a new batch of the COVID-19 AstraZeneca's vaccine under the COVAX program. Minister for Health announced on Twitter the arrival of 360,000 doses of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine. This batch will be distributed urgently to all government-controlled areas. It is not only just a struggling healthcare system to blame for the uncounted coronavirus deaths, but the state of denial of Houthi rebels that aggravates the pandemic situation. This report has more on that story.
Yemen, the Arab world's poorest country, has already been devastated by a 6 years of civil war. Amid the fighting came the COVID-19 pandemic, adding to the war's deadly toll. There was a big wave of COVID-19, and the Houthi rebel knew that very well, said the UN health official in Yemen, who spoke on a condition of anonymity for fear of undermining negotiations with the rebels on vaccinations and other issues. Isolation centers were full, the numbers were doubled 3 or 4 times. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the Houthi rebels haven't treated it with seriousness and action, said Afrah Nasser, Yemen researcher at Human Rights Watch. They even have hindered international efforts to help fight in their areas, she said. Each party in Yemen has its own strategy, but the Houthi rebels' one is destructive, she said. It's a recipe for disaster. Dr. Adham Ismail, the World Health Organization representative in Yemen, said it was a big achievement to get any coronavirus vaccine at all into Houthi-controlled territories. Initially, authorities banned the shots and then agreed to allowing in only 1,000 doses. They haven't held any campaigns encouraging people to get vaccinated. The Houthi rebels' opposition to vaccines forced doctors and other residents to seek their shots in Yemeni government-held areas. Many, including aid workers working in Houthi-held areas, registered online and traveled secretly to cities like Aden, Lahj and Taiz for vaccination. A spokesman for the rebels did not answer calls seeking a comment, but last year, Yusuf al-Hadari, a spokesman for the Houthi Health Ministry, said, "We don't publish the numbers to the society because such publicity has a heavy and terrifying toll on people's psychological health." Meanwhile, the Houthi rebels continue holding public events, including recruitment gatherings and funerals attended by thousands of senior military officials killed in a battle, as virus cases spike. All are held with no precautionary measures against the virus. Over a dozen doctors, aid workers and residents said cases in North are rising rapidly, with more frequent funerals apparently of virus victims, though doctors said they have been warned not to confirm the causes of the deaths. All spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation from the rebels. Doctors and other healthcare workers said that 24 isolation centers in the north have been full since mid-July. One healthcare worker in the Palestine hospital said dozens of patients have come every day with coronavirus-like symptoms, most in their 30s and 40s. He said many are being told to isolate at home for lack of other options. The Houthis have appointed security supervisors at hospitals to control the flow of information between medical staff and patients' families, according to healthcare workers. Houthi rebel authorities avoid to mention their death. This state of denial will not stop the spread of the virus. Lastly, Yemenis seem to be sandwiched between this deadly virus and another human virus which seems to have attacked the entire Yemeni body.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 41 new cases of COVID-19 in 6 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 14 cases were recorded in Ma'rib, 11 in Hadramaut, 7 in Aden, 4 in Shabwa, 3 in Bayda, and 2 in Dara. Also 6 deaths were recorded, plus 18 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 8,830, including 1,664 deaths and 5,456 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken urges all parties to collaborate with the UN envoy and indulge in peace without preconditions. UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Coordinator Martin Griffiths says Yemen needs more humanitarian aids. Because of Houthi escalation in Shabwa, a new wave of displacement to Ma'rib has started. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.